I'm Brian Leighty. I'm a Roku engineer on the FuboTV team. Um, and what I'm going to discuss today is um, basically something I've wanted to do for a long time, ever since I was at CNN. And we had issues where we'd submit the Roku and we'd get pushback that or submit and then come back, oh, you did X wrong or like that, your deep links don't work. And I said, this is just getting silly because these are the things we're not testing in the day to day you know developer workflow. Let's just write some tests for this to go ahead and be able to test these things on a regular basis so that it's not until we get to regression or like that that we realize that this isn't working. And thankfully, with my time at Fubo, I've been able to spend a good chunk of this year working on building out a testing framework for that to be able to write tests for that. And I'm going to go over that with you guys. And so let's go ahead and get started. We are having some issues with recording or like that. We can't do record to Hangout anymore. So if afterwards, if you guys have any questions, I'll just try and repeat what you guys say, hopefully so it'll get picked up. But we'll go ahead and get started. So I guess the first thing, I'll just go to the npm page for it. The extension is called roku-test-automation. It's on the npm module, and basically have like a README on all the basic setup or like that. I'll go into that a little bit further, but we'll just kind of start going through a basic setup of how you would get it running. So let's see here. So the first thing is pull up my notes. Let's see. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is just go to terminal. I'm already within my project. Actually, I'm not in the right folder. Need to go into test project.
Share screen.
I'm sorry?
Share screen.
That was saying the same thing. We're not seeing your screen right now, Brian.
You're not. Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Thank you for letting me know that now. Yep, that would help. Present your entire screen, and then we go. Let's see. Share. Okay. Can you guys see it, my screen now? I guess you're.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
All right.
All right, and so I'll just go back here for a sec. npm Node.js or npm repository. You can go check that out there, and then, like I said, there's a README there. It's also on the GitHub that we'll go through some later. But so we'll go and get started. The first thing we want to do is just do to install the module. So I'm in my base. I've already set up a package.json like that. Just adding this to it. And so I'm going to add that. All right. So now that I've done that, the second step, basically there's a config for RTA. Right now, I just have it named rta-config.json. That's the default name. But you can also give it a path of a name of where you want it to be. But I'm just going to paste in a basic config here. So the schema is basically just giving us type completion or like that of what the fields are, making sure they're valid. And the bare minimum, literally all you need is just a host and the password for that device. There's other fields like if your device has a different screenshot format or like that. There's options in regards to device index. That's for more complicated if you're doing multiple devices. And in each of the sections, there's one for ECP, different things. But it's bare bones. Literally all you need is just a device IP and password. and that's how I know what device we need to be communicating with. So the next step, we're going to go into our package.json. And it looks like I already put this in. So basically, I'm using Mocha. If you're using something else, obviously it'll work fine with that, but that's the way I've run all my tests are like that, is with Mocha. Obviously, these are automated tests, so it's actually going to take quite a bit longer than your usual unit test or like that, for depending on what you're doing. So we've increased the timeout. This is just for since we're TypeScript, jumping back to the actual source files or like that. And then we're also going to include a file for all of our tests, and I'll explain that as my next step of why we're doing that. So I have an include.ts, and basically, let's see. Basically, this kind of just helps simplify. Instead of having to include something, in every file, basically of, we want to, deploy the app, we want to, afterwards shut down type that. We're basically just putting that in one spot, so it gets included no matter what test you run. So the first thing, this should look familiar if you've worked with other NPM modules before. Basically, we have the roku-test-automation that we're importing, and then we're importing the different pieces of it. Device, which is actually the Roku device class. ODC is the main one you'll use for most of this stuff, and then utils is just like some helpers or like that. If you guys have any questions at any point during this, feel free to ask or like that. But so the next thing, we're going to add both a before and after. And if you're familiar with Mocha, basically before we run any of our tests, this code's going to get run. And so basically what we're going to do, we're going to load in our RTA config file into the environment. The reason I went this path, I originally did have it where it was just reading in the file directly or like that. I switched to having it being pulled from the environment for parallelization or like that. Let's say with Mocha Parallel or like that, you want to be able to be running tests on multiple devices at the same time or like that. This helps simplify that you don't have to have a config file for every single device or like that. You can have a common config that you're just writing to the environment or like that, the config for that setup, and it's able to proceed. And then the only other thing we're doing here in number 4 is we're actually deploying the app. Now this is basically a wrapper around Roku deploy. So basically what it's doing is it's deploying, in my case, the base project is simple enough, but obviously in a more complicated, you would be giving a list of files and things of that nature. But basically you're setting up your deploy there to package it up so that it's a consistent environment that your tests are always going to be able to run, and so it can run on CLI and things of that nature, where you're not within VS Code and can't run it directly. And then afterwards, all we're doing is shutting down. If you don't shut it down, this opens up a server, so your test will kind of just hang or like that. So it's important that you shut it down afterwards so that you'll actually get an exit code and can proceed with your CLI. Let's see, I think we're good there. All right, so with that, let's actually look at our application. Sorry for the super basic app or like that, but I was basically just trying to get something that I could give an example of writing a test for it. So we have our glorious app here. It has a button that's, pretend this was the splash screen. You want to click it to log in. I go here. Now I click this button to put in my email address. I'm not going to really fill in this too much, just to speed things up, right? But, so you would go there, you would go down, you would put in the next one, and then I hit submit, and it says you are now logged in. So we're basically going to write a test for that. to be able to automate those steps of making sure that all that works. So so starting out, so we have a login file here, login.spec, and I've just included the same things here as before, ECP, ODC, utils like that. I've also imported chai. I think I'm mainly just using that for expect. And let's see. So let's go ahead and write this structure here. So just basic outer thing, and then our actual test. So we're saying that should log in user successfully. Now, one thing to keep in mind, with our test, we're going to be doing some ECP commands as our first commands. And as a result of that, if you literally just went in here and started adding those commands, it doesn't know that your application has launched yet. So it's going to it's not going to be accurate or like that. So for the time being, we'll fix this in a little bit, but for the time being, we're just going to do a simple util sleep of 2000, and then we're going to start writing. So interested to get everybody's input or like that on this. Basically, I've tried to make it pretty straightforward. The idea being that QA or like that should be able to, with some coding knowledge, be able to write tests for this. So basically, we're going to start by kind of replicating the steps we went through before with DCP of just sending the key presses or like that. So we're just going to do a send key press, and then ECP key dot, and then whichever key it is we want to do. In this case, we're doing an OK press. And it is good to go ahead and do some comments here as well. So makes it a lot easier following through in the future like that you did that. So we're going to do that. I'm just going to speed things up here a little bit. The next one would be clicking the email button. And then once that comes up, we're actually going to use another command, which is, instead of one-off for ECP literals for characters, we're going to go ahead and use the send text function. So, and then I can just give it a string of text here. So I'll just do my email address, and then so I put in our email address, and then now you got to keep in mind this is on the actual keyboard or like that, so we need to navigate down to our button to continue. So we're going to use another one that's a little shortcut of send key press sequence. And then key, and then down, 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 and then we got an OK. All right, and the cool thing with a lot of this stuff is because it's all with TypeScript, like it's all strongly typed, that like if I do something wrong here, it's going to let me know that I'm doing something wrong now versus later, which is nice. All right, and then so we've done that. So at this point, we're back. We're back to the main screen we were at before. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and run this. Should be a spot where we're able to. So I have a launch configuration here to launch this. And I should be able to go here, go into here. Yep, what happened? Did something wrong. Did not contain config at, oh, did I not? This project is the fun with live projects or like that, live demos. Let's see. Why is that not working? from environment. Let's just try and do a process.env. Let's just see what we get out of this. See if it's actually loading. Okay, I don't see where this is actually getting called at all. Let me look at our package.json. This test include. Am I looking at the wrong one? I am. Okay, so this is actually, because this is serving both as the actual extension as well as the test project, I'm actually in the wrong file here. So that explains why that was already filled in there. So I need to go to the other package.json, which does not have our Mocha included there at all. So let's go ahead and add that in. Alright, and then now let's see if this works any better. Alright, well, like this will actually work better this time. There we go. Okay. ECP should be an object. Did I put in something else there?
I was wondering, are those commands that ECP commands part of this?
They are. Yeah, so one thing that you'll realize, like a lot of this stuff is going to look very basic at first. I'm not sure if you've looked into the Roku implementation. They basically, their test automation framework largely is ECP is basically all it's using. But yes, correct. All this stuff is part of the extension. So it does give you all this stuff as part of it. They're all under that ECP singleton or like that. You can also, there is also ECP in the actual individual classes, but in the most part, you'll just be using the singletons or like that get generated for you. Let's see, why is it asking for that? The config should be optional for that, so why should be an object. Well, we can try and give it one. Shouldn't be needed though. But yeah, I mean, this gives you some defaults here of key press delay and things of that nature, where you can actually set those up. Because I actually deployed correctly, so we know that's right. And Projwell, feel free. Projwell, just jumping in. Projwell has also helped co-author a lot of this stuff. So if Projwell, if at any point you see what I'm doing wrong with any of this stuff, feel free to jump in as well of why it might not be working. Let's see. Let's go. Okay, it worked that time. I'm not sure why it was. Let me see if when I take this out, it actually. Yeah, for some reason it's complaining. We'll have to look into that, why it's requiring that now. But that's all right. We'll fix that. But But yeah, so let me actually show you what it was supposed to be doing there. So redeploy it. So it's pretty quick. That is one thing that I've been impressed with a lot of stuff. The Roku remote tool or like that, is pretty good for being able to automate things. But unfortunately, they have a 1 second limit on each key press, which makes it a lot less effective for being able to do testing with it because of the fact it's just so slow. As you can see there, it literally blazed through that. So we've gotten to the point we put in our username, our email address. We're going to do our password next. So we're going to go to our spec here, and then yep. And just to speed things along here, I'm going to go ahead and just fill in for our password as well, instead of just typing this out. So basically we're navigating down from this button here down to here, clicking OK. And then one thing I think would be cool to eventually be able to kind of build in is a way to automate some of this stuff as well. The Roku tool actually does have the built-in format or ability to record. I thought it might be cool to try and be able to take the output from one of those scripts and convert it over to the code for running that tester like that. That's definitely would be a nice improvement. Say so we're there, and then we're gonna send our super secure password 1234567 and then same as the other one, we're gonna navigate down to the OK button, which should then get us to, let's see here, get us back to the error page. Let's see here, and then we're going to click the submit button to actually do our login. So let's go ahead and run that. Okay, so now we're logged in. So this is the part where getting back to the question of why do this versus using Roku's built-in or their testing framework. They do have where you could inspect the nodes or like that, the node tree, to be able to see if something in the view was what you wanted. But beyond that, it's pretty limited in actually being able to have a test that actually says I actually succeeded. And so now we're actually going to get into the heart of really the extension, which is the on-device component. And if you're familiar with how Rail works, it works the exact same way, not the exact, but largely the same, where you have a device on a component on the device that actually you're sending commands to. That then can do various things on the device. We can go through what all those are in a little bit here. But so the first thing, same as Rail, you're going to go ahead and you're going to add the component to your main scene. Some people do it in main. It doesn't matter where you put it, but basically just somewhere you need to have it. Now one thing, I do have this this conditional block. This is actually a feature I built into it to help with simplicity that as part of the deploy process, it will, if you have an enable RTA in it, it'll actually turn that to true while you're deploying or like that. So it makes it so that this is obviously going to get included when you're doing a regular build or like that, which is nice. So basically we're just setting up our on-device component, ODC, just keeping it around. And then that allows us to start using a lot more functionality on it. So in this case, we want to see if a user is logged in or not. So we're going to go back to our test here, and we're going to do a wait. And let's see, so ODC. I guess I should start out with the basic idea of get value at key path, because that's kind of the underlying thing that pretty much all of the methods under the hood use. So get value key path. I guess probably the easiest is to start just doing one out so you can see what it looks like. So basically you have a key path, which looks something like, in my case, I have an auth manager on global. We'll get to that in a sec of that. But so I have an auth manager, and then I want to check the is logged in field on it. Well, in this case, I'd be getting the field. So let's just do const result equals, and we're just gonna log it result. So we want to get that value. And the other thing, so there's right now that I don't know if there'll ever be a third one or not. There's really two main places you can actually come in on. You can either come in on global, or you can come in on the scene. If you don't specify one, global is the default, but you can also access the scene as well. And basically the idea behind this key path here is basically it's just going to go down into it, that path. I'll go in a little bit more detail. There's actually a lot of power in this, of what you're able to do with it. But it's most basic. You're just doing, what like an AA, the field on an AA, and just kind of diving deeper into it. So global isn't needed here, but I'll just go ahead and have it there just so you can see. And we're going to go ahead and run this. All right, so there is our result. I don't know why this thing is complaining about this. Probably we should look into that. It seems like with our latest release, we must have messed something up with the configs being required for the individual pieces.
Yeah, ECP I have it in my config, but I don't see on-device component there.
Yeah, none of them should be required other than the Roku device one. So we'll have to fix that. Let's try and run this again. What's up?
No, I just looked into my config. I have a log level in the RTA config, so that's probably the reason why it's not complaining.
Okay, yeah. You actually think about it now, I feel like I do too, but yep. Okay, so now we actually got a response here. So most of the responses you get from, let's see here. Most of the responses you get from the methods aren't going to get returned like a result directly. They're normally going to return an actual object or like that, just for the ability in the future for us to be able to expand the functionality. It just makes it a lot simpler like that for future expansion. So we have a few things here. We have found. Basically, it found the value for it. If it didn't, you could check against, was the value found, if that's all you cared about, if the value even existed. Success is more from a just network perspective. It was successful. We also added time taken as well, so like more for like benchmarking of obviously in these most of the cases it's going to be 0 if it's just a synchronous function. But like let's say you're doing a call function or something that's a little bit more in depth or like that, and you want to actually be able to benchmark it to know, okay, is this getting worse as our performance in our app getting worse over time, you can kind of write tests for that of keeping track of performance or like that, which is really helpful. In our case, the one we really care about is just the value. So if we were writing this, we could also just write this as instead of result, just value like that. And then now we're able to get the actual value directly and use it in our test. So we're going to take that one step further. And do you guys have any questions before I keep going? I'm kind of trying to do my best, but I'll take doesn't now. All right. So we're actually going to use a different form of this. So if we were doing this, and let's say our is logged in takes some time, right? It would be a pain that either we're having to constantly pull the device to say, has this value changed? Or we're having to do, like another sleep here, which again, anytime you gotta do a sleep, you're slowing down your test substantially, right? So like if we had to do something like that, then that's going to slow down our test quite a bit. So basically, we've built another method here called observe field, and basically it has the same syntax as the get value key path. It's actually using that under the hood. But basically, what this is going to do is it's going to set up an observer on this key path, and it's going to, when that value changes, it's going to fire an event back to us. In this case, it wouldn't matter because the first value is what we're looking for, but there are obviously cases where you don't want that first value, so we actually have the ability to pass in a match. So match, we want to only be notified when is logged in is equal to true. And so basically now it's going to wait until that happens to proceed, and then now for our last thing we can actually do some expectations on this. So let's see here.
Is there something you could do like that where you had that where you put the sleep at the top to just kind of indicate that the app loaded to sort of start everything?
You're asking could we do that one do one there?
Yeah, something similar like, you have is logged in, like matched, I don't know what it would be, like screen loaded.
Yep, correct. Yeah, so like I was saying, like this is a temporary thing we're going to step through to basically explain. But we're just trying to start up with most basic and kind of work up to that. So we'll definitely do that here in a sec. So actually in this case, it looks like I was actually not using that value. Basically, I was just using the is logged in field to just make sure we were ready to go, that we were logged in. So basically, if you never logged in the amount of time, it would just time out and you would know that it failed. But if we did, we're actually going to use another one of the methods to get the focused node. ODC, get focused node. And then let's see. Yeah, we don't need any properties for this. And what this will do is this will return a node representation, including if you're familiar with update, it returns the same type of structure like that. So children and the subtype of it, and you can check all those things against it to make sure they're right. So now I can actually start getting into some expect. So I expect the node ID and focus to equal row list, and I also expect the node subtype. You'll notice I've tried to build like a basic typing here. Obviously nodes are all unique or like that, but at least the base level ones that are going to be common to any of them are included there for quick access to it. to equal, and then it's a rowless component, so we expect the subtype to also be that. Just kind of trying to demonstrate some of the functionality or like that that's available there. You can obviously write your test however you want, and I'll go over in a sec here what all is actually available. But that's, I believe, the basic of our test. And yep, like you said, Joe, right now we're doing a sleep here. That's obviously going to slow down our tester like that because we're having to wait for it to proceed. So instead of that,
and I've seen apps take longer than 2 seconds too, so that.
And exactly, that is the inherent issue with sleeps is that okay, that wasn't long enough. Okay,
Yeah, like a
now
low-end model.
exactly, yep. And so now you're at your lowest common denominator. That now all your tests get way slower as a result, which is not fun. So we're gonna go ahead and actually add to our common file. We're gonna import the ODC component. That's the only one we need. And then we're just going to make us a helper here that's just wait for application load. And I have a field. It's on global, just launch complete. Obviously in your app it would be something that's applicable to you. And the other thing to keep in mind is for some tests you might want to do it during your boot flow or like that startup. So you're not necessarily wanting this to be in your include where you're waiting beforehand everything. So it's just a helper that we can use here. And so now in our actual test, I removed that sleep. We're going to go ahead and import our helper here. And then now we can actually just do an wait for application load. And then now it's only going to wait as long as it needs to for this launch complete to be true, and then it's immediately going to start firing off after that. So with that, we should be able to run this and hopefully get a passing test. All right, so it passed. Part of the reason, just real quick, I purposely put this in here I actually have a minimum splash min time of 2,000 just to try and speed it up or like that. If I take that out, or actually to make it so that the sleep was required, I guess I would say. But if I run it again, you should see it should be a decent amount faster, and a decent amount of this is actually just the pulley time. So yeah, so we're about three seconds there for a test. Does anybody have any specific questions on this? I'm going to go over the actual, just kind of walk through the README or like that a little bit of some of the other functionality that's available or like that. But did you guys have any questions on this specific test or like that, or any of this part of things? All right. So let's go.
Slow to find mute. Just the node tester that you put in at the bottom and stuff. That's all good to work with, like custom components and all of that sort of stuff.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So like I said, it's a node representation, and I can kind of just show you what that looks like. I'm opening files. What is this going to be on request? It's basically all the built-in ones to a node or like that of what they are. But this is a representation for any node or like that. And like I said, it also has the children structure as well. Actually, if I want, let's just do a real quick thing here and I can just demonstrate it. One thing I have noticed is that I tried to do this in our own app at the top level, and the JSON structure got so big it actually caused the parser to actually not work. So I do need to look into that. But if we just do a simple, what is it, await, ODC, get value, key path, and then we're just literally going to do a key path of nothing, right? And then we're going to get the base is the scene. I can basically get my entire node tree or like that here now spit out. Hopefully I should be able to actually expand this to show you what that looks like for the node representation for the entire thing. Okay. So did it do it? Let's see. Shoot. Yeah, it's getting clipped or like that. But so this is actually it looks like this is the scene object or like that. But basically inside of that would be the children. Let me see if I can just do a quick format JSON on this so I can actually get JSON. Stringify. Although I suppose I am going to have to deal with nasty JSON, but at least you'll be able to see the children or like that of it. Yeah, so you can see it. It's pretty big here for our representation, but literally you have the entire node tree there of the entire application, which again, this is a really basic application. But it's you can actually get that entire structure. In fact, one of my goals, if I can get the time ever, is to actually try and build a open source version of Rail or like that of all these components and actually be able to use it within VS Code or like that. But in answer to your question, Alice, yes, it'll work with all sorts of custom components or like that. Now, one disclaimer there is, as you might be aware already, that anything within an array grid or like that item or like that is hidden away. In our apps, we actually have a helper like that actually will put the currently focused item on global so we can still inspect and stuff like that. But out of the box, that's not going to be available within array grid child or like that. But for pretty much everything else, you can access it.
Cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let me just pull up the README. We kind of went over that a little bit already. So yeah, so you already saw pretty much the extent of ECP. It's pretty basic. I suppose I ain't going to launching or deep linking. You can do deep linking into an app or like that. The key press sequence, sending text. There is also getting the current active app. That's used somewhat internally for trying the performance of not relaunching the application if it's not needed. So like I said, the on-device component is really kind of the heart of this extension. This is a list of all the different forms of it. Like I said, yeah, this is the basic thing. Most of the stuff you're going to do is just in the args. The options, I think right now is largely just for timeout and more server side, whereas the args is what's passed to the actual on-device component or like that, more on that side. So I mentioned that you can do a lot more stuff with it than just strictly just accessing a field on it. So an example of that, let's say you have a field that's an array. You can say array dot the first item, get me the ID of that item. You can also do -1, which would get you the last item in that array, the ID of it. If it's a node, you can also, instead of it being the index, you can get it's the equivalent of calling node.getChild and then gain the ID off of that. And obviously this can be multiple levels where you could have, dot zero, dot one, dot, you could keep it going for a long time. Now, if it doesn't find a field named, let's say, in this case, that is logged in, then it would actually look for a field that has that ID. So let's just pull up our application. Let's see. So this is probably not the best. Let me look at the splash page. That's landing page. So let's say you did main scene dot test target, and then you want to do something like get the subchild 1 inside of that. It'll actually can drill down inside of that instead of you having to do test target dot, I guess that'd be 1 dot 1. You can also just write that out as test target dot subchild 1, which makes it a lot more readable, or like that. So it's pretty powerful with what you're able to do with that. And like I said, that's the foundation of a lot of the other things inside of the extension. Is basically that's kind of your entry point that you're then able to do things with. So get values at key paths is kind of just performance based. Instead of us having to send off a bunch of requests, we can send off one request. It's going to get all those values and then return them back as a grouper like that. Honestly, I haven't used that one too much, but if you were trying to do a bunch of values, it could be beneficial for removing some of the round trip latency on your request. Set value key path. So in the same way that you could get values, you can also set values. This might be that you're setting up environment in such a way that you need to mock something that you aren't able to do, like let's say like your purchases from Roku or something like that. You need to change it or something like that. You could actually set those values in there and then run. You also could use this to actually set off things from observers. They're observing these values, which can also launch off things. In the same way, call funcs, you can also do a call func with the function name and the function params of what you want to pass in, and it will actually call that call func. Again, like I said, call func and set value are more so like where you might be looking at using the amount of time it took to run on the device or like that as for performance profiling or like that as well. We also have the get focus node, has focus, is in focus chain, and the observe field like I had mentioned that we used in the example. We also recently added in the ability to both read the registry, write the registry, and also delete things from the registry. And those were actually largely added for by themselves, but also for the proxy, which is something that's still, I would say, under construction or like that. It's working, but we definitely want to expand it some more. But the cool thing is we've tried to make it pretty straightforward with being able to get set up or like that, in that it'll actually write to a section on the registry or like that, and can remove it from the registry or like that. So you could have a test that only one test is running through the proxy or like that, and it's all automatically set up, which is pretty cool. I would suggest Prajwal to do a talk on that one. He's actually the one that's largely worked on that. But at the core of it, what we've largely tried to focus on is that you can actually write rules in Charles or like that, that then you then just export that configure like that, and then you're able to use that config in your test to have the same effect on it as you had in Charles or like that for your automated test. Utils, I'm trying to think. There's a few things in here. The set from config environment from config file like we used at the beginning. and a couple other helpers are like that. But at the end of the day, that's largely what we have. And yeah, would love to get feedback from you guys. Using it. Obviously, we are using it now in Fubo's workflow like that, but I would say it's still early days, and would like to get feedback from others of ways that might be able to improve things. But does anybody have any questions?
I'm curious if there's like an on-screen or like is visible method.
Um, so you're saying like that it was in the bounds, or that it
Yeah,
was
like,
visible, or what?
yeah, something that uses like the scene bounds to see like this item is, like let's say you're looping through a list of child nodes and you want to know which ones of these are actually visible to the user right now.
Yeah, that's totally that's a great idea. Yeah, that I'm trying to think. Yeah, because we don't get bounds as part of our response object, because obviously bounding rect would be too heavy to do on everything. But yeah, totally, I could totally see a method being added for that. Yeah, checking if it's on screen. Actually, I'm trying to think. You
Most
might be able to do that right now just by if you did a call of telling it of render tracking, and then you did another call to see what the status was on it. It's a little bit hacky, but
Hmm.
would be one way to do it probably currently.
Brian, I was thinking we still can achieve it with observe field, right? Like using the node and the visible field. That will tell us when the
Well, so I think
Yeah,
what he's saying isn't so much is it visible, as in I think he's talking more like a more broad, is this actually showing to the user, right? Because you could have something that's off in the translation,
yeah, that
but isn't within the bounding rect of on screen or like that. So yeah,
is that like a row list? You have a bunch of children of a row list, and you don't know what's what, but
yeah,
which one's relevant at any given moment, or like, did this ever show to the user like I expected? It could be
yep,
a good test.
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of curious too. Like, do you guys have like libraries of tests that you run, or and you do like? I'm kind of just curious how you guys use it.
Yeah, I mean, so deep linking is definitely a big one, because like I said, that's always one that tends to bite you. Prajal, I'm not sure if you want to speak to some of the other spots we use. I think like we test our login flow, logging
Yeah,
it as a user like that, the different methods. Um,
we implemented our IAB flow, like creating a new account. Uh, we integrated with Roku IAB, like putting in their pin code, and then we after the pin code is done, then we call Roku web service to cancel the subscription. So all our IAB, not everything, but we started with starting a new free trial and upgrade downgrade those things. Then deep linking is the main important thing that comes back regularly.
yep,
That's automated. So we are adding like one by one, and probably our omniture or analytics requirement is the next thing that
yep.
we are trying to automate, because that's something that takes a lot of time to verify. So
Cool.
Alice, did you have any other questions?
No other questions. I've got to drop because it's my next call.
Sure.
But it was a great prezo. It was really good to see, especially since we've been sitting with Ruibos, and so doing like the base unit testing, and then we've got some testers who have been looking into things like Whitby, which are very like UI and heavy and just like screen scanning and stuff like that. And
Yep.
so it's interesting to sort of look at where some of the more middle places are and how we can, what tests work better in which environment and stuff like that is something we're very much looking into at the moment. So I think it'll be, yeah, it was really good to see like a middle section.
Hmm.
And I think if we can find time, I would love to try and implement some of it and see what we can do with it. So yeah, thanks very much. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and obviously, if you ever have any questions, definitely I'm on the Roku Slacker like that, so definitely feel free to reach out. If it gets popular enough, maybe we'll make a channel on there like that to discuss this specifically. But otherwise, feel free to reach out to me directly or
George
like that.
will uh, George will vouch for me that I definitely know how to ask
Yeah.
questions in Roku Slack. So
And you mentioned like with a screen capture and stuff like that. That is one thing that would eventually like to do, but I would say it's a lower priority, just because your content has to all be matching up or like that in order for it to be beneficial for the recognition stuff there. And I think that the ability to get the values and stuff is a lot more beneficial. But that is another thing that I do want to build in eventually as well. So
Oh yeah, some of the UI limitations is why we've been looking at what we can do
yep,
in other ways, because you make a small design change and suddenly all your tests break, and
exactly.
no one enjoys that. And so it's where can we write tests that need the UI specifically, and where can we write tests that log in and just say yes, you've logged in, and can we find a balance in the middle? So, but no, really good. Thank you very
Yep.
much.
Yeah. Thank you for the feedback. Well, if nobody has anything else, I think I'm gonna end it here. Thanks for coming, and we'll see if we end up doing one in December or not. Um, Obviously, December's always kind of an odd month, but it was good talking to you guys, and we'll talk to you later.
Been an odd year. Thank you guys. Thank you, Brian.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
one.